Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm so glad that you guys were able to be here today. My name is Jessica Knupp. I'm the Director of Member Marketing and Sales. Today, I'm also stepping in for Amy Jackson. So if you're looking for Amy, she's vacationing, and here you go. But we're so glad you're here. What we're going to do first, before I introduce you to Mark DeVerges from Forvis, we're going to go around the room, introduce ourselves briefly, what company you're with, so that we can make sure we all know who we are. Also, with our SMART series, I want to thank our wonderful partners and sponsors with Mission Health, Davis Financial Planning, Ross Sloan and Martha Todd Sloan, Amplified Media, and of course, Fast Signs of Asheville. So again, thank you all so much for being here today. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Thanks for everyone coming. Michael, if you want to mind leading us off, and also in addition to who you are and your group, if you could tell us either a fun fact or a challenge that you're currently experiencing that either as the brain trust in this room, we may be able to help dialogue today about.
That'd be great. All right, I'll try to come up with something quick on that.
No pressure.
Hey, everybody, Michael Montgomery. I am the Asheville office leader for the We're very architecture engineering firm. I was here around 2018 as Odell, and we were acquired. So maybe merger acquisition would be one that's kind of like it's about a year and a half in. Feeling like I saw more feeling like our knowing where the opportunities and landmines are, but obviously it's a different organizational structure.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in hearing about employee ownership. There are a lot of kind of A&E firms that are going through that, whether you're ESOP or it's some variation thereof.
Yep.
So that's great.
Hey everyone, I'm Laura Shuff. I'm the Development Director for ASAP, the Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project. And we keep farmers farming and help build healthy communities through connections to local food. A fun fact is that I have discount codes with me today to our farm tour in September, so come and find me. That, and then just challenge, I don't know if anyone else in the room is in a nonprofit, but our funding structure is different than business. And so just thinking about compensation and bonus structure and strategies is a little different from us, for us.
That's great. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Russ Towers. I'm founding co-owner of Second Gear. It's an outdoor here in clothing store inside of this. Now down in the River Arts District. In fact, I'm almost 20 years old. Woohoo! Guess that. And a challenge right now is we've had this steady growth every year, and just kind of managing that growth is a big challenge. And big part of that is we've gone from when we started out basically 1-2 employees to close to 20 now, and just seeing a little bit different environment in the last couple of years in the employment realm. So we're here to learn about that. We've had people turning over, and Ryan will talk more about that. We've had people accept jobs and then quit before they even start, kind of thing. We never had that. So it's just kind of what new challenges with the hiring process and retaining people, training people.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm Ryan Comer with Second Gear as well. I'm the HR hiring and staffing manager. And as Russ alluded to, staffing has been a newer challenge. During COVID, I was sharing with you beforehand that people were so excited to work and generally stuck around for a while. But I think with there being so many opportunities and people kind of deciding what they want to do now, I've had at least 3 to 4 people in the past couple months either quit short notice or just never start accept jobs. I think the creative ways in which I've been trying to adjust and working together with Russ and the other owners is to increase our starting wages and some of our benefits packages. We past year, I think kind of a fun fact about Second Gear, we came up with a wellness stipend, which I'm really proud of, which is it's taxable wages, but it gives us more flexibility in how we offer it. Essentially, it's to help offset healthcare for staff. And that seems to be received really well from our full-time staff members. So essentially, if they get a healthcare plan through the marketplace, that gives them some extra funds on their paycheck to offset those costs. And it was still cheaper than us getting insurance and them covering that. So yeah, thanks.
Katie Price. I'm the Director of Recruitment for Northwestern Mutual. Footprint is specifically Asheville, so recruiting advisors, staff, interns, all of the above. So this is my whole world that I live in day to day. But yeah, it's wild out there. I mean, recruiting is never a dull moment. But what Ryan spoke about, just false starts, probably more than ever last year.
Thank you.
Joanne Wright with Ventures Coaching. We're a coaching business that works with leadership development and let's see, fun fact. I love to backpack. And I think I'm especially interested in, retention because that's a lot of what we work with leadership teams that are struggling. And when the elephant in the room is not being talked about, a lot of times teams break apart, employees leave silently. And so that's just something we're very interested in.
I'm Steve Wright. It's just amazing we have the same last name. Trying to figure out how that happened. 33 years ago. Fun fact. We like adventure, and by extension, somehow raised 4 kids that like adventure. Our second son is flying today to Brussels, where he's going to begin a backpacking trip, and he doesn't have a return ticket. The last time he did this was only 4 months, but his mistake then was he had a return. So he had to get back. So we don't know what's going to happen.
Is he going solo?
So
Big
backpack this big.
That's it.
Yeah, and he's done it before, so kind of knows what to expect. He's not bread only this time. He's springing for some cheese on this trip. So we're more confident he's going to come back healthy. What else? Oh yes, challenge. Our challenge is in our business. We love this. Actually, stop it. Our challenge is to meet people who are passionate about the human development of their own business, of their own corporations or businesses, because they're the people we need to talk to really help leaders grow and be more effective and develop synergy with their team. So it's the people who are passionate about their research, their people development that we want to meet, and that's our challenge. Find those people, hopefully in this region, because we love face to face, and we'd rather drive and fly, but we like flying too. So that's our challenge. You know any of those people? Let us know.
Thank you, Steve.
All of that.
Yeah, no.
I'm Donna Hammett. I'm the trustee assistant for today. I'm also with Forvis, and I do strategic planning for South Carolina and Western North Carolina. So I'm on the road a lot. That's love what I do, and a lot of coaching. Yeah, Donna. Let's see, challenge, just retaining our people.
Yeah.
Accounting is tough. It's hard to keep them in public accounting. A lot of times they go to our clients, which is good because then we keep the business. And my other challenge is I have a recent retired husband, and if you can find something for him to do.
Is there recruiting in this?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll volunteer him.
My name is Joshua Robinson. I am CEO of a company called ITI Manufacturing. Fun fact, ITI is not a local presence. It's a Houston company. My wife and I moved here just a year ago, so I'm kind of new to the area. I don't know about challenge, but something I think about a lot is recruitment, alignment, engagement with employees, and just finding ways to get employees more attached to the organization beyond compensation, which I think anyone will tell you it's a lot more than just compensation. So.
Christy Kay with Express Employment Professionals. We are a staffing agency here in Asheville, and I've got plenty that he can come and I'm going to work tomorrow night at Salvage Station. He's ready to go. 20 bucks an hour, 5 hours. That's all I need to do. And I'm eating out tie-dye t-shirts. You ready? My way.
Do anything but banking. In 40 years.
I don't need to be in banking. Is it a professional or in the restaurant? Professional or personal on that?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Personal fun fact, I am a classically trained pianist. That is how I got into college. You didn't know that. I know, please don't ask me to play now. I haven't played in years. Professional fun fact, last year we put 152 people on permanent payroll in Western North Carolina. So that means we work with our businesses in the area to put them through our process and to get them onto these business payroll. And our strength is pretty much anything behind a computer, but obviously we also do the tie-dye t-shirt and down. But yeah, I would say like our challenge, I can do stats. Last Tuesday, one of my employment specialists called 65 people. They got a hold of 21 and only called in 2 for interviews. And that's what my team does all day long. And to call 65 and only have 2 people come in. And that's not even, we didn't even hire them at this point in the game. We just asked them to come in for an interview. So it is very much a numbers game, but just trying to, I talk to businesses all day long and businesses, man, they're thinking outside of the box. And I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more of what other people are doing to continue to consult with our current clients.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Kaplan. I'm the Director of Venture Asheville. Our office is downstairs in the Chamber and Economic Development Office. We build entrepreneurs to get better funded. The main thing is a mentorship-based incubator called Elevate. That's my fun fact. Elevate just broke through 100 million in revenue and with 50 million capital raised for local language startups. Yeah, thanks. Our challenge is as our program grows, being part of the Economic Development Coalition and the Chamber, our budget doesn't grow. So we're asked to do more with the same resources, right? So we're gonna have our team's not expanding. So we're leaning more and more to figure out what we can do with AI. And are we using that for our social media, our press releases, our web page development, we have a web page for the event. And so that's where we're spending a lot of time to get around the human problem is are there things we can do with AI that are accessible and do more with us. Pretty cool.
I'm Sydney Lyons. I'm part of the member services of the chamber. I'm very new, day 5. Yeah. Hopefully back to Jessica. We're just happy you're here.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, that's our time today. Thanks for my name is Mark DeVerges, as mentioned, and I worked in recruiting for 20-some years. And, lead a team, mostly on the executive direct hire type space. And it is a lot of crazy time. There have definitely been some periods in my career, Great Recession through COVID, post-COVID era right now. And just each space definitely provides some challenges and also opportunities. Our group deals with a lot of accounting type positions, so CFOs, controllers, as well as operations, general managers, HR type spots. And so we hear a lot of what works, obviously what doesn't work, and also help facilitate various different peer groups. So that's where today really shouldn't be a monologue. Everyone in this room also has some creative opportunities of solutions, challenges that they're trying to work through. And so I know we only have like 40 minutes to solve world peace now, but we'll try to go through this and at least share, slide deck to support, but also if this kind of ends up taking a path of its own, that's a win in my book. If we end up having some really cool solutions, at least my goal is that everyone walks out of here with a couple of new ideas that can help influence their organization today. So as we all know, folks leave for a litany of reasons. And today's topic, is to try to narrow it down a little bit, just because again, there's a lot to unpack. Does, surround the compensation side of the coin, but there is a lot more to it than just compensation. So also there's some great ideas, right? I think they're great. That, low cost, high ROI. And I think that's where just from that experience, how to create that sense of engagement and ownership within an organization that, really produces results and moves the needle. So that's the narrow focus I'm trying to focus on. And certainly one of the
first four things that any recruiters usually ask, or anyone in HR when you're talking about a new position, is what does it pay? And that's the biggest challenge, and especially in markets like Western North Carolina, Asheville specifically, a lot, having grown up here and knowing some of the traditional, pillars in our community, a lot of them get kind of caught flat-footed, especially if they haven't had to hire, because they do have some great retention, some great tenure within their team when they actually go back out to market, just with the cost of living that exists these days. And so it's interesting, most recruiters can really give you a good snapshot of the here and now, and that's where, don't be afraid to reach out to recruiters. We live and breathe comp. Unfortunately, in my opinion, a lot of the data salary surveys, it's like driving around the road looking in the rearview mirror, and they're kind of basing off of comp. Does anyone have a particular source that you like that helps you understand, at least from a pure, where other folks are being paid, where you should be in the marketplace, any strategies that you found work? No.
I mean, besides boots on the ground, that would be what I say, because all the statistics that I bring up from websites are rearview mirror. They're behind several months compared to what businesses are really paying.
I was gonna say, we always do like a reverse search. So if you're looking for, let's say, executive assistant, you can go and search that on Indeed and see what everyone else is. Of course, they have to list their salary, but most people put a band. And then as you start to talk to people, you can kind of see where the market is.
Yeah. Now that works, and that's where it's interesting, because also just trying to keep up with that is what someone maybe brought in on day one with no experience in that role, versus then once they have 2 to 3 years of experience. A lot of companies that I know, especially over the past 18 months, especially this time last year when inflation was just insane, like almost trying to give either spot bonuses or just trying to figure out, that managed cash flow management also became very critical for groups, but they were really at risk of losing folks. So, being able to understand where you're at, is just kind of rule number one, but it's also not all compensation. Most employees, some hourly, direct wage, where unfortunately it's when companies haven't done a good job of imparting their culture or imparting what's special to them, or being lost on those job boards of the folks that are actively looking, that just kind of get lost in the shuffle, and the only common denominator that they know to separate out is that salary, how to actually get those, or the wage, how to get those folks beforehand. So, what we've seen, I'm not sure how many groups are at the level where you're offering, 401ks. It's helpful, but I think it's lost a lot of the allure that it had. We've seen companies that do offer 401ks, then benefit when they also have like an auto enroll aspect, and actually then use it in lockstep with a profit sharing, being able to at least even reference that there's some level of profit sharing, and dropping it into the 401k is meaningful. But most, especially, hourly workers or folks in the very beginning of their career, out of sight, out of mind, they're not really paying attention to it in my experience. And it's not really providing, that hook. They almost expect that they're never going to hit the part where they're finally vested, or they're actually kind of be able to see some value in that. So, do you have?
I presume that you said it's not as popular anymore, and I presume part of that would be just the challenges of, you mentioned cost of living of just, if you're going, just trying to save up to buy a house, buy something, that's challenging enough, much less trying to think about, oh, I'm gonna put money away for 45 years from now, whatever that number is.
We work with a client that noticed none of their employees were taking 401ks, and talked to them and found out it was because of debt, and particularly college tuition. And so they opened up savings accounts and said, if you put money in, we'll put money in. The company got the interest off of the savings account, but then once a quarter, they would take funds out of that savings account and pay off student loans, houses, cars. whatever it was, and they matched whatever the employee put in up to a certain
And
percent.
they don't have to wait till they're sixties.
They were trying to come up, think outside of the box, but I don't know how that works financially. Or what a business has to do to be able to claim those things, but I thought it was brilliant, thinking outside of the box concept.
Yeah, touch on that actually in the next little part is like little unconventional aspects, but that, I mean, you're right on the money. Any kind of either student loans or just pure debt is a huge win whenever, and we have seen companies that have formalized debt programs, and it's an awkward conversation sometimes. So you really have to have a high level of trust with your employees, but to even have that as an option that they can reach out towards to facilitate that conversation. We have seen some companies that, will set aside a certain amount, almost like a matching, but in reverse. And there is a caveat then, the fear factor is, okay, yeah, we help them pay off their debt and then they leave. So there is a little bit of a repayment schedule associated with that when we've seen companies that really have that as part of their program, but it ends up being a huge tool and it really helps them either save up for, home or save up for, just improving their own financial picture. Yeah, no, that's great. That's very powerful. Where we've seen folks that, I'm a big believer in retirement plans, so that's where I hate saying that, get rid of your 401k, keep the 401k, but again, Asheville's cost of living is higher. And it's great, we've seen some tremendous value for companies that auto enroll with 401k and then use a profit sharing aspect. So it doesn't have to be a one-to-one match, but that it's another tool for companies to be able to put a tangible figure in their company, their employees' savings or then, other creative aspects. ESOPs, indeed, that has been a tremendous win for a lot of organizations, especially in the, construction umbrella where there are a lot of, solo entrepreneurial type groups or any company, can really benefit from them in many ways. Not every company, is it a great solution for other folks? That's where my little legal disclosure talk to your advisor. But we've seen, that can really help move the needle from both a recruiting tool, both for then a retention tool, if it's a meaningful way. And so that's where common pitfalls for ESOPs is when they're so ubiquitous that, the dividend payment ends up being almost a rounding error for some entry-level employees. And so they get there, they're excited, and then it becomes oh, okay. Versus really, that motivation of when structured right, and sometimes we actually see it reserved for like folks once they've had a certain amount of time within a company, which maintains the motivation, but it also reduces the pool just enough so that folks that earn that, they do feel like they earned something special. And it kind of creates the culture of, instead of them being a passenger on a rowboat, that they're actually picking up the oar and rowing. And that kind of switch in mentality from passenger versus crew, it can be a very, very powerful shift. And it also ends up being a very tremendous exit strategy for that owner, especially if they're able to look at it 10 years before they want to be fully removed from the company, somewhere to have enough buffer period, because sometimes if it is a true, like, individually owned organization, there's different benchmarks and milestones. If they're almost having to finance through the company's, structure, that whole, ESOP funding. And so it's helpful when there can be time to play with. It doesn't need to be 10 years, but it's helpful, somewhere between that 5 and 10 year type window for when someone wants to exit. But it can be a huge win. It's just structuring that timeline is very critical. Structuring, the access to it can be critical, because we do have some groups that it then became more of a challenge, and not, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze in many ways, because it was, the company's metrics didn't actually ever have that win for the employees or the owner, and they ended up just being a better acquisition target almost as a result. And so the complete opposite of what the intent was, but that was at the end of the day, the best financial solution for where they work, because they hadn't really structured it correctly. There you go. Yeah. Another bucket, and that's where some owners are very resistant to even enter into the thought of, that they're more, or, or already have a different built out, structure for how they're going to transition their organization. We have seen more companies then use a long-term incentive plan, kind of in combination or in lieu of some other aspects, which again, for whatever their benefit, particular case study, ends up being an additional bucket of money in addition to, salary or wage, or it's usually coming in at the mid to executive level. Just be mindful of the vesting period or the cliff waiting period for when someone could qualify for it, or, what that vesting period is. We've had some companies that never actually had on paper that they could, the employees could actually vest. And we had a, key hire for this organization, and kind of really getting a little upset, realizing that he would have to be 65 per the terms of that agreement. And he was 20 years into the organization and had 20 more to go. And that the likelihood of them surviving, the next 27 years were, questionable. And so they ended up leaving, basically realizing that the document wasn't in their mind worth the paper that it was printed on. And so trying to be mindful that if companies do offer, some type of long-term incentives, that they actually can be attainable, or else they can almost have a deterrent factor. And that's where that company was trying to just make sure that folks had a goal to retire with the organization. Just throwing out arbitrary numbers, but from, executive comp or additional bucket to consider, this tends to be the least worst option for companies that are looking at additional buckets, but that, whatever that total award that you want someone to be able to earn, having a 1-year cliff is what we would look at. And then that each year, a third of that total payment is then vested. Again, you can go higher, go lower, but that, what's nice is that from a company's perspective, there's always this golden handcuff trying to help encourage folks to stay. But that it's not such a significant amount of money. We've also had the reverse, that a company was so reliant on their long-term incentive plan that they were keeping the folks that actually didn't really have the fire in the belly to stay engaged. But they couldn't afford to leave because they saw that they had, in this case, it was like well north of 50 grand that they had, basically tied up in this retirement plan that they were just going to keep driving towards. And it was kind of a weird spot. Yeah, Steve.
I'm curious, I noticed the bell-shaped curve, the total vested amount that they've got there. What's motivating this employee in years 6, 7, and 8 when they're capped or they start to go down?
And so that's where it wouldn't actually go down. It's just, I should have just cut the numbers off at that point, because in theory, great catch, I appreciate that. Because in, year 6, year 7, year 8, they keep
I see.
popping in those funds.
So you're making the cliff more like a ramp on the way.
Yeah, it's more of a ramp versus a bell
Okay,
curve.
that's great.
Yeah, I appreciate the question there. But that's been something that we've seen very helpful, and it also helps from an employer and an employee perspective. Is the employee, especially if they are there for the long run, they can count on that, total income, and they also from year 1, give value to that and understand what they're walking away from if they do make that change. From an employer perspective, cash flow wise, it's very helpful, because then it's year 3 before they're actually having to, stroke that final check. And so, there's some win-wins on both sides when again structured, correctly. But that's something that we've seen more companies trying to do, especially as, a few sectors have done really well actually through, some of this, COVID weird world that we've been through. Question on, for groups and roles that offer PTO, this has been kind of the wild card question. We've seen a lot of groups, especially in the construction real estate space, or construction in particular, kind of pull back on while they may have been hybrid or, on some level, okay with virtual, they've almost switched 100% back to wanting folks in the office. I would imagine most folks in this room have some level of hybrid, or I guess on the retail environment, you are 100% in person on some level, or
Yes, for that.
other, is that, I guess depending on the industry sector, not necessarily an issue, but we've, for roles that in theory could have a level of hybrid to them or virtual aspect, I would say that 80% of the candidates out there almost expect that to be the case. And so when you bump into groups that they want that 100%, in office experience, they're missing out on a lot of.
Yeah, but your competition between other businesses, unless they're not like, I will say locally. Since COVID, we had this massive, everybody working from home and then a little bit of hybrid. I would say the people that are doing hybrid or any type of virtual are so minuscule that it's not that big of a competition. That if Michael came to apply and said, I'm only going to work virtually, then we're going to look at him and say, good luck. Because your chances of being able to find that here in Asheville, because everybody's looking for it, but such a small sector of businesses are even offering it. You got to be a rock star and win a lottery.
But it's interesting, we've seen more companies and also like, especially in pockets, being able to benefit from, kind of that, workspace. I'm blanking on the name, Jeff. Hatch kind of workspaces, or, a number of companies, especially for accounting type positions, have basically said, hey, if you live within 2 hours of the office, you can live, anywhere within there. We just weekly, need to see your face. And so it's interesting, but it is kind of a localized, depending on the sector, depending on the role.
Yeah, as a counterpoint to Christie, coming out of our incubator, startups we work with, unless there's a manufacturing component, no company that started in the last 3 years in our world is in person.
Are they tech?
They're all tech or mostly
They're all
tech,
tech.
and something unless it's manufacturing.
And that's what I said, like, it's such a, but it's still such a niche. Like you're a computer, you're a tech person, and which again, comparable to like the administrative people or even accounting people that are connecting with us. It's a sliver, but like paralegals, accounting, tech, those are the fields that I'm seeing the virtual or the hybrid. But most of those businesses don't even have a brick and mortar.
Right, so for the benefit or the perk that those folks are looking for is a stipend or co-working. Yeah, so a lot of them still miss being around people. They miss that water cooler moments.
Yeah.
And it's the same company, but they want to be around people.
Yeah.
Which is why like other places like that.
Yeah,
they get along.
exactly.
But I'll even say, I'm curious to know with the businesses of where you were talking about with the previous slide, are they finding people that are applying that are interested in that? And like, even in regards to like the PTO, like I see you talk about the starting date.
Yeah.
I've seen massive shift in businesses saying, you don't have to wait a year to invest in your 401k. You don't have to wait a year in order to be able to start getting PTO.
Yeah.
And how people are taking that, and like with those ESOPs and the other one that you're talking about, like how are people investing? Because what we're seeing is you can get an associate from CFO all the way down to general labor to stay for 5 years, and then you're a successful business.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's where waiving a lot of those enrollment periods, and even on the, the benefits like health and such, we see more companies, and depending on the level, but offering to cover just part of the offer, not even a discussion, any of the COBRA payments to, allow, that kind of continuity. It's been, again, for, ideal hires, we're seeing companies just kind of knowing that they need to be more spearfishing, going after exactly what they want and trying to figure out how to overcome. Yeah, Jeff.
Mark, if I can take you back to the deferred compensation, a quick thing on that, and that is the $8,000, is that pitched as additional compensation as in your salary, or is it a bonus? And I ask that because people interpret that between salary and bonus differently. Some people say, well, bonus is a bonus. It's kind of like, I'm not counting on that. That's a reward, whereas, so just curious how that,
No, great question.
how that gets pitched.
Yeah, so that it would be purely as a bonus, and that's where each year, that's where, you know, the 88,000 just ended up being a number that was thrown in there. Obviously, each year can be very different, and it can be tied to, you know, different KPIs as well. And so having some kind of metric that is attainable, that was the important part. But usually, you know, we've seen that to try to influence above and beyond just whatever that base wage or base salary is. And so in addition to the annual comp, and thus why it even has a cliff period. So then all of a sudden, as that employee, you're getting a few different tranches, especially if you've been there. Again, you know, the goal is get someone, you know, to stay at your company for 2 years. If you're able to get them to stay for 2 years, they're much more likely to get there to stay for 5 years and onwards. And so trying to figure out how to help get folks to that type of milestone so that they are obviously enjoying the culture, they're engaging, they're performing. You know, but that is an additional bonus mechanism, and it presents very well to, you know, from an employee, and it tends to work out really well, especially in this weird hiring market. It helps offset, you know, the times when salaries may go wild, because especially from a total comp scenario, it provides a little bit of a buffer for your key performers that are really moving the needle for the organization.
Thank you.
And, you know, great question. Yeah, and PTO, you know, we've seen again, you know, many companies starting to offer that day one. You know, they're, you know, it's always a challenge, but it definitely, you know, is something that can be a draw card. You know, companies that have a policy, you know, but that they don't effectively actually let their employees take off. You know, it's kind of a challenge. It is definitely more of a case by case and industry by industry as far as what's standard. But, you know, we've seen a few companies that, you know, have a set amount, and then they're actually paying out for, you know, anywhere from 3 to 5 days when it's unused, but wanting, you know, their employees to take advantage of it. And so almost trying to help motivate, you know, folks to use it, to be able to recharge their batteries, but then also to try to have it as a means of don't abuse it, in a sense, and trying to, you know, come up with those ways. From a medical perspective, locally, we've seen a lot of groups, especially if they are not either at the employee headcount space, or even just from trying to figure out ways to provide additional benefits. Asheville has 5 direct primary care medical groups that if you are not offering, you know, primary benefits to, you know, health benefits to your employees, or trying to offset through the marketplace, I would highly recommend looking into direct primary care. It's abundant in Asheville, whereas Winston-Salem has 0, which is shocking. Yeah.
We also, through your chamber membership, you have access to that through chamber workforce benefits to offer to your employees on top. You can do a payroll deduction, or you can just offer it to them as well. So you can let us know or reference your new member packet. But direct primary care is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Who do y'all use, or?
Well, we have a couple different options. Most of us that have children go to Lantern, but because they have, because they will see.
I use Lantern. My wife has her employer also. She goes to Asheville.
Oh.
Okay.
We're both.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, the employer group that I worked with 7 years ago was using one of the first direct primary care groups, and as an employee, it was a game changer from that experience, and also just quality of time.
Oh.
Looking, you know, it just respects your employees' time in particular, which versus just the machine. No offense, but that's been a bit when I think works in lockstep with, you know, major medical needs as well, but it can really help provide some good help. Pharmacy benefit plans, there's also some groups in town that are directly involved with some direct to consumer pharmacy benefit plans, and that can walk in lockstep with the direct primary care, both providing cost savings to you and your employees, and really not being a significant, expense. I mean, it adds up, but it's actually cheaper in many cases than whichever pharmacy benefit plan you're currently using. And so if you're in with the direct primary care, ask any of them, and they'll be able to connect you with some of those suits as well. For some levels, vehicles became a really big thing, especially when, again, that's where not all roles need, vehicles or perks, but, especially when vehicle costs were going crazy for roles that we were involved with that had multiple different offices and on the road, companies that were able to get the vehicles, we're offering that, and that ended up being a tremendous ROI for what that actual expense ended up being. Safety, again, I work with a fair amount of groups that have, either, manufacturing or construction or various different aspects. And safety was kind of a KPI that they started tying into their long-term, benefit plans or just normal metrics, because then if the safer they were, the lower their insurance costs were naturally, and also just better quality place they were to begin with. But then also trying to pass some of those savings on, that just kind of motivated. Same scenario with KPIs. If you're in sales, if you're in other aspects, we have one group that whenever they're working on a big proposal or bid, try to take out, some of those spheres of influence, to launch your understanding why they, lost the contract, that's, or why they won the contract, either way, that's actually a KPI that firm tracks, says, just kind of better understand so they can sharpen their sword a little bit better for the next time. Additional components. I'm not sure if any companies offer referral bonuses in here. Challenging, historically, you're cutting a big check, anywhere from 90 days or 120 days in, sometimes 6-month mark. And, in our data, they tend not to work terribly well, just that, that's a lot of cash to forego. And then, it's kind of lost in the shuffle. We've seen a few companies starting to implement more like I think of it as like an annuity almost, but like a monthly stipend of, and it can be a pretty modest amount, but anywhere from $25 to $50 to $100 a month. Pick whatever level and what your company is doing, but that it ultimately doesn't have a timeline attached to it for the groups that have started to implement that, and that way, for the employees that do bring on a few folks, then all of a sudden they're augmenting their income. They also have more of an ongoing vested interest that, Steve's wanting to make sure Joy, however she got the last name, stay on with their consulting venture. From that, it's been a creative way that from a month-to-month cash flow basis has helped, reduce that just wild, referral fees that were being thrown around, but then also, from a long-term, it's been a big win for the employees that have taken advantage of that for some groups. Spot bonuses, definitely if you see either locally, kind of de minimis amounts can even be a game changer to just show appreciation. Gift cards, spot bonuses, ways to kind of wrap your company's love and appreciation for your employees. That can be huge, especially if it's, even directly with other businesses in the community that you enjoy. Everyone here should buy gift cards to Second Gear, those kind of scenarios where we see some groups that offer not only just gym membership offsets, but also even targeting a specific gym, which especially if a lot of your employees are going there, it improves wellness, but that it can also create that connection. It's just kind of constantly seeing the same employees, different cycle, you get to know each other. It can work. Zoo, group that I know offers memberships, to the nature center or to various other things that, or just kind of hosts different events, or they've bought sporting tickets to different things and they just give those out to their employees as a, rotating type basis, but it's just being able to, from a cost, ends up providing a nice win. Mentorship programs that actually have a budget are always helpful. Other suggestions in this room?
We've had several companies hire us, put our coaching services on their
Yeah.
benefit package. And so if employees want to take advantage of it, they're given free coaching sessions. And then the next 3, they pay a 30% copay. And then after that, they continue the coaching relationship at full, cost to the employee. But I think a lot of employees could tell that it was not just to be coaching about their work, but about all of life.
Yeah.
And employees were very touched by that of, wow, they actually care about me, all of me. I think that spoke well.
That's huge.
ASAP has worked with some companies in town to start a workplace CSA program. We can help match your business with a farm that can drop off weekly CSA boxes for the staff interested in participating. And then there might be opportunities to go on a field trip to that farmer, and build a relationship with that farmer. But basically the business is supplementing the cost of those costs.
And also surprise, oh, go ahead,
I
sorry.
was gonna say, been with Express for 7 years, and one of the biggest reasons that I'm still there is within the first 90 days, my boss wrote a note to my parents. At that point in time, I wasn't married, and she just expressed gratefulness. Like it took it to a whole new level of not just me working there, but showing appreciation. I think a lot of business owners don't realize that a thank you goes a long way. And I always encourage day one for any business owner, when your people start, write a thank you note.
Yeah.
Thank you for choosing us, because there's so many different options out there and it's so impactful. And that doesn't cost anybody anything.
Right. Well worth the stand. Yeah, that's absolutely huge. That reminded me of another group that, they have folks that travel extensively. Sometimes they're away, weeks at a time, that they'll especially if there's been a heavy rotation, they'll send a gift basket to that employee's, home, mostly just, especially if they do have, dependents or partner, to be able to just kind of, hey, thanks. We know that this was a burden on you and your family to try to help make that happen. And, even if it's, a solo employee, I mean, they'll still enjoy whatever that, the gifts and items are. It's just a nice little token of appreciation. Have really gone far. And then I am constantly shocked. So, a lot of groups and employees, we've had this scenario recently where an employee got excited about, package that we were offering. The base was actually higher than where they were. They were so excited, perfect cultural fit, perfect company. Checking in with them a couple months later, love the company, love the role. And then they realized, like, holy smokes, but they don't offer this, this, and this that I was really used to at the other group. And, it was unfortunate for that candidate. And also, in my opinion, their prior employer didn't do a good job of communicating what that is on the front end, of what that total comp package is, because it's expensive, to have, employees. And so to have them leave for, it wasn't a money motivated type scenario, but the candidate was excited thinking that they were going to be making more, and they were from the base salary, but some of these other items were missed, but also just completely unaware to them to even ask or to communicate. And then it was obviously too late. They're not able to renegotiate at that point. It was going to be definitely an awkward conversation. So, that total reward statement is powerful and easy.
I'd like to double down on that. I worked for Amica Insurance for 28 years. They mailed one of these the end of each year. And it definitely locked me in, because I realized, oh, my salary, which is what I touch, every 2 weeks, is not the whole picture. And, as employers, you are feeling that all the time, all the extra things you're paying. It doesn't, as an employee, it didn't insult me that you're paying for these things.
Right.
It hurts you. Well, let us benefit from that by letting us see what it costs, because you're spending it on us. So I really appreciated that, and it really did well.
Yeah, because in my role, I'm mostly talking to employees that are currently working somewhere, and it's obvious to me when they actually have an organization that's doing a good job of communicating what their actual comp is, when they are able to kind of go through the menu of different items. And so we can at least compare apples to apples as best as possible. So thanks for staring.
If you guys for suggestions of other things that companies are doing, businesses are doing. What we did to start, we offered, meaning start to offer more benefits is we had the direct primary care, but before that, we were offering through Range Urgent Care, they have an employer program, a subscription program. So we made it available to employees. It wasn't for everybody, but if you wanted it. And the theory was that, okay, you're active. Yeah, you might have more of a need for something like an urgent care situation more so than a long-term situation. We then added a DPC because Range offered that. So we were doing both, which gets more into wellness and kind of ongoing issues that people have as opposed to, hey, I just, scrape my elbow or hit my ribs or whatever. So that's what we were doing. And then we added a stipend on top of that as well. It's huge.
What was your participation?
For the urgent care, about half of the staff, a little less than half.
Did the rest either A, not understand, or B, have other options?
I think other options or, and it didn't cost them anything. It wasn't, they weren't out of pocket. They, I guess, they just didn't feel like they need that. We are now, because Range has sold to Novant, we were exploring other options and we came to the conclusion of, I kind of felt like we were putting money into this program every month, whether people were using it or not, that let's just add more. So we're going to just add more onto our stipend because I feel like people are going to use that money regardless. If it's in an urgent care or DPC, they may or may not get the benefit of that month in and month out. So as a small business, that's what we do.
I know we're running close to our time and just trying to be respectful to everyone's schedule, but other ideas, suggestions?
A rave program that we
Yeah.
have. I think
The what program?
it's called Rave. I think they renamed it when we merged.
Probably, yeah.
They give us so many points per quarter and we can just say thank you and do like shout outs to people who've helped you or, you got one piece of business. And just, I don't know, to me, it's nice because it's internal and it's with each other. So it's not just necessarily coming from your boss, it's coming from your peers.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you can take the points and cash them in for, gift cards or whatever at the end of the year.
Like
But I think-
$5 high fives. is
Yeah,
kind of like
exactly. That's a good, a Starbucks card with it or whatever. But I think the showing the appreciation is so important for retention.
I'll throw in a couple more ideas. There's HRAs, healthcare reimbursement accounts that, for our company, we pay 8% of everyone's healthcare deductible. There's also contributions toward childcare,
Yes.
and also contributions towards kids' college tuitions. Just another ways to sort of add.
Yeah.
to the basket.
And they're all tax advantaged and there's some nice benefits for that as well. Yeah, no, big fan and user of HSS.
Like you could put it into a 529, that where it goes for the college.
No, the college reimbursement actually is taxed. We just pay the employees directly.
Yeah.
It's a certain amount per semester the child achieves.
So something they can use now, not saving up for down the road.
Yeah, your only way to qualify is to kid goes to college, get certain grades and that's it.
How many businesses do you experience that are adding time off, additional time off?
The ones that are really trying to make those hires, yeah, we've seen that very easy conversation as.
And it's not a part of their package, but like they're giving time away or you can earn additional time off.
Oh, outside of like the offer letter, just like as far as ongoing basis.
I mean, like I whispered into Jeff's ear, but I said, businesses, please stop doing pizza parties. Like pizza parties are out. We've had them in elementary school. Nobody wants them anymore. If you're still doing a pizza party, I'm sorry, you're please don't. But what I've kind of started seeing is people, if you meet these expectations, then you get a half day on Friday, or we'll let you off an extra day this day, like throwing out time, and instead of anything else. Are you seeing that?
Not as often as you are, obviously. Yeah, I like that creative solution. We have seen groups trying to become creative with their space more, especially how to draw on some employees and, have creative different workspaces within offices that allow for almost like an on-site, space where, hey, we want young families to feel like they're able to come here, especially if there's, work day or other points, being able to bring the kids, have, some space designated where the kids, where the parents are able to still plug in and engage.
And flexibility.
Yeah.
If you want to start at 7 and end at 4, if you want to start at 6 and then at 3, if you want to start at 10, a lot more flexibility.
We added in a birthday PTO where a couple weeks for your birthday, issue an extra 8 hours. That's been received really well.
Don't be afraid to celebrate fun wins or big, anniversaries. We, a bunch of our office just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of a big merger that's worked out really well, and that kind of merger integration that I was hoping to touch on. I know we're running out of time, but
We went to Dollywood.
yeah, we went to Dollywood as an office. And, just trying to find ways to carve that time. That's where mergers are a whole tricky scenario from a cultural, standpoint, and how to, integrate it so that it's not just feeling like one group is now just being taken over without any, fingerprints. Our group, just had an honest assessment of, different cultural things. The group that we paired up with had a really cool book that kind of encapsulated the client experience that we wanted to create. And part of what they did, was trying to, we had some internal, cultural aspects, but to really codify it and then rolling it out as a book that we all now have a copy of that includes some great best practices of just, Stephen Covey, John Maxwell, other thought leaders out there, but also just kind of who we are as that kind of DNA to be able to give sense to it. And to any company that's gone through a merger that's had, being able to allow different groups to be able to recognize and see, oh yeah, that's us in that new DNA. No, we're right out of time, Jessica, so
No, it's
take it away.
great.
Yeah, this is
Thank
good.
you so much for coming. Does anybody have any additional questions? Mark will be up here for a little bit. There's QR
There you
code.
go. Wow, feel free to reach out.
I have an additional question. As far as when referrals that you referred to. Is that mostly for finding talent, finding help, finding employees? And is it more common with companies that hire recruiters, so it's cheaper, maybe less to pay somebody a referral fee than
that's
recruiting fee?
That's where a lot of it started. And also, I mean, there's pros and cons to recruiting from your employees' direct circle, especially if you're looking to, diversify or, go after different demographics than what you already have. Sometimes that becomes a challenge with referral fees. But, that's where bringing me in all the time is not the solution. That's where, yes, bringing in a targeted recruiter when you need, but, your employees and being able to reward them, in my opinion, is a great opportunity to help them connect and engage. Really good to see you again. Being able to connect and engage, but that's what it usually is that referral fee of, hey, you might have been paying this recruiter or staffing group, XYZ. Hey, let's share, some of the cost savings is basically what they're doing. And then, so that's where a lot of referral fees kind of started in that mentality. And it is a great way to give that kind of financial high five to your employees, and especially if they already know folks that they're basically vouching for from a cultural standpoint, from drive, that does encourage it. We've seen a little bit of an increase for companies that do have referral programs. We've seen a similar, maintenance of the benefit of, increasing referrals of direct candidates, even especially before they start actively applying, to the litany of groups, and that's where it becomes really hard to separate your company in the cyberspace world. But how do you, bring in and attract folks, is that recruiting fee, and then that kind of almost annuity is where we've seen some fun.
Brian mentioned the birthday, paid time off for your birthday. Just to clarify, we don't require people to take it on their birthday. It doesn't really expire, but
And that's where like floating holidays or birthday, other ways to try to, be as inclusive, but also celebrate, we've seen cool ideas in that space. That's great. Cool. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.